This episode is brought to you by Netflix. Most Valuable Promotions and Netflix are hosting a blockbuster triple headliner Saturday, May 16th. Ronda Rousey returns to face fellow women's MMA pioneer Gina Carano in the main event. Plus co-mains Nate Diaz versus Mike Perry. And the best heavyweight in the world, Francis Ngannou versus Felipe Lins. Watch Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano, live only on Netflix. Saturday, May 16th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Time.
Study and play come together on a Windows 11 PC. And for a limited time, college students get the best of both worlds. Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wrestling Draft.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Wrestling Draft. My name is David Hockney. We're in episode 2 of season 29. It's been the fallout of Backlash, and there's still plenty more to come, despite quite an eventful weekend. We've still got loads more to come. And if you're just joining us along for the ride, well, you're in for something pretty special, because if you've seen in some of our past seasons, you will notice I typically have Scott McLeod as my co-host in this chair. But given that there's been a slight change in hosting duties, the co-hosting chair is now going to be on rotation for the foreseeable. You might get the same guest host twice a week in a row, maybe a few times, but the important thing is we're going to have more than one person in the co-hosting chair going forward. Now, last week it was Andy Mitchell, and this week, someone who's been very eager to be seen in the co-hosting chair this week, it is none other than JP. And JP, well, I had you on once previously in the past season, and I think the feedback was generally quite positive, but I get the feeling in the last week, there's been some things that haven't made you too happy lately, and I just want to get where your mind is at the minute as we start to get the ball rolling with the new season.
And thanks very much for the really nice introduction, David. I do appreciate that, as always, very humbly, in my opinion. Things have been a bit chaotic in the last week. The league has seen a little bit of turmoil. As we all know, it's been a very emotional 24 hours. Feelings are running high, tempers are getting frayed at points. But I think it's important that I come on as the voice of reason, to quote the emeritus member of the podcast community, goat by name, goat by nature, Mr. David Campbell. But I need to be the voice of reason, and I need to call out the blatant corruption and cheating that we're seeing. It's not good. We can't stand for it. We need to draw a line under it, and we need to move on, because the league deserves better. And that, of course, I'm talking about Stephen Wilson trying to dock the GOAT points by uploading a blatant imitation of a league. I won't stand for it, David. You know, my morals and values are a lot higher than that scum pond life, Stephen Wilson. And I have to call out, so GOAT, you got your points updated. You are top of the league, as a little spoiler. But yes, we will start as we mean to continue. No bribery, no corruption, no cheating in this league.
No, quite right. And you know what? I think with the way you delivered that, I think you'd make an excellent addition to the West End Country Club, because we're always rich in morals, integrity, and wealth. There
are three things that I am known for. Perhaps not the wealth, perhaps not the morals, and, well, actually, maybe not all three.
You know what? I'll put you down as a maybe. But West End Country Club membership aside, we've got some important information to discuss. Now, at Backlash, we had some big points immediately going on the board to kick us off week 2 of season 29. And JP, our top scorers of the week are all in double digits. So we'll start off on 10 points, it is Darby Allin with a successful defense against Pac on Saturday. Now, Darby Allin, obviously a member of Team GOAT, did come across as a bit of a dark horse in the selection process, but the more you look at it, he's starting to slowly rack up those AEW title defenses, and it has been a big contributor as to why Team GOAT has been doing so well straight out the gate. Darby's next title match has been announced for Double or Nothing next week after defending the title against, I think it was Konosuke Takeshita this past week on Dynamite. So it's been a very, very good week for Darby Allin.
Yeah, I agree with you. There were some hums and maybe shifty side eyes at Mr. Campbell taking Darby Allin. I have to say that in terms of where Tony Khan sees him in the company, I think the four pillars has been mentioned ad nauseum in the past, but I do think he is a very loyal soldier of AEW, and he's a workhorse, regardless of his ethic of trying to kill himself in every opportunity. He's there. He shows up and he shows out week in, week out. So I think it's a very astute, and it looks like a brilliant pick by Mr. Campbell in the early going. It's only early days. It is one of the longest seasons that we've got, but it looks like he's put the best foot forward.
Yeah, and we'll go into more detail on Double or Nothing next week because it's happening on the 24th of May. So not this week, but next week, we'll do a bit more of an in-depth dig into Double or Nothing and what it could mean, given the stipulation is going to be title versus hair against MJF. But our joint second scorers of the week is Io Sky, first of all, who got a win over Asuka at Backlash and also got a win over Sol Ruka on Raw. So a pair of wins for the Genius of the Sky over the weekend. A great week for Matt Smith's Io Sky in this case. So, and Matt, obviously, actually trying is the new not trying. I think now that he's actually trying, he's starting to get the ball rolling. He's didn't start off too well, but that Io Sky win's really sort of given them the boost he needed.
Yeah. Again, another solid pick. I think Io was one of the best scorers last season for the women's side. This season, she started off strongly. I think now with Asuka, I'm reading today that rather than her leaving WWE for good, it looks like an extended leave of absence due to family reasons. Obviously, on a personal note, I hope that's the case because I absolutely adore her. So I think she's fantastic for the division. But I think Io can now have a rocket strapped to her. She's very highly thought of in the background. Very similar to Darby. She shows up and shows out each and every week. So again, trying is the new, or not trying is the new trying, or trying is the new not trying for Matt. And I think that's a very astute pick as well. Yeah.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see because I think Io's, obviously the WrestleMania season didn't go according to plan, but this is an opportunity for her to turn things around, especially, she's a face superstar, arguably the best female face they've got on the Raw brand, and Liv Morgan's parading around as the heel champion. But you've got a few other challengers out there, so let's just hope Io Sky could potentially be the one to throw in Liv Morgan for Matt's sake. And also on 14 points this week, ones in the air, please. Your tribal chief, Roman Reigns, also scores 14 points this week with a successful captaincy title defense against Jacob Fatu at Backlash and a plethora of appearances on Raw. So Roman Reigns in the West End Country Club has proven to be an early juggernaut of the season so far. And it looks like, there was a bit of a dispute about his appearances in the coming months. So he's going to be scheduled for the rest of May, along with an appearance in Clash in Italy. But now looks like some June dates have been added to his schedule, along with the Night of Champions pay-per-view in Saudi Arabia. So could we potentially see, Roman Reigns going in as arguably the biggest scorer of the season so far?
Yeah, the talk was, I'm sure everyone is quite aware that the TKO were trying to bend his arm in terms of renegotiation his contract. He's on X amount of million per year. They're in a cost-cutting phase, which, whether or not you agree with, I think Roman has stuck to his guns somewhat. He's got a lot of clout backstage, And yeah, it looks like whatever troubled waters they were heading for, they're looking to steady the ship somewhat. I see them now being a permanent fixture, as you said, all the way through to probably Saudi, where again that's going to be a money show for him to turn up in. And yes, if he continues to turn up with his, bludgeoning rivalry with Jacob, that looks like there's a couple more twists and turns in that. I can easily see Roman being not just like top scorer on a week by week basis, but seeing that through to the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the stats at the minute, he's currently the top scorer of the season so far on 17 points without the captaincy applied, and that's combined with 6 TV appearances, 2 pay-per-view appearances, and 1 pay-per-view title defense. So with the captaincy applied, he's ruling the land of the West End Country Club, but he wasn't the top scorer of the week. No, that honor, JP, goes to your boy, Trick Williams, who successfully defended the United States title against Sami Zayn at Backlash and had a plethora of appearances across the show itself. So, not to mention, there was the Gingerbread Man's funeral last week on SmackDown. So that just added, a couple of extra points. And I tell you what, Trick is really starting to really win over the crowd, shall we say. I think even though his character is somewhat morally grey in some areas, that could also be said for Sami Zayn, but his aura is undeniable. And I think just him being featured on the SmackDown brand alone, I think that's going to get your points up, even if he doesn't do the US title open challenge, which has been a fixture for the past couple of seasons.
Yeah, I would say that he is settled into the tweener role very well now. When him and Carmelo got called up from NXT, I was disappointed with how they were handled on the main roster, because I absolutely loved them when they were in NXT. They just have that factor, the it factor, the X factor, the star quality that makes a pro wrestler a pro wrestler. So I'm very high on Trick, given the fact that it looked almost a certainty that was taking the belt from Sami, and with that continuing, because Sami's gold on television, he can, we've seen it in the past that he can make storylines go on and go on and go on. I hitched my wagon to the Trick Willie horse. And yeah, I'm looking to see that ride off into the sunset, shall we say?
Oh, really got away with words on that. But so that's been our top scorers for Backlash. Let's see how it looks as we go into the standings. And at the moment, we're looking at a 35-point gap between first and last place at the minute. And in joint last at the minute, we have Andy Mitchell with El Baldi and Michicano, and Stephen Wilson with the Lucha Dogs on 23 apiece. And then 8 points ahead, we have Anthony Fitzpatrick with Bring Back the Split Season. Well, you're in the transfer window season, so deal with it. Dan Axel Jameson with 11 kicking on 34 points, I should say. Now, big announcement with regards to Dan's team. He has switched the captaincy already from Liv Morgan to Will Ospreay because of Will Ospreay's involvement in the Owen Hart Cup. And it seems like, I think Dan's banking on a Will Ospreay win in the Owen Hart Cup tournament. So I see what he's doing, but JP, I want to get your thoughts on, why is Dan making the captaincy change so early in the season, and why is he taking it off arguably one of the most prominent superstars on WWE TV?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think and I'm loath to give Dan some credit. I think it's a good move ultimately. His rationale about Liv being a little bit rudderless in the division at the moment, there's no real sign of what's going to be booked in the coming weeks of that. I kind of agree with it. And also I agree with the fact that I think Will Ospreay will have a great showing in the Owen Hart Cup, potentially winning that. I see him being a very big focal point heading all the way through the summer. Obviously, we're going to be back at Wembley with AEW. So I even though it's only 2 weeks in, or less than 2 full weeks, I would agree that it's probably a really, really good decision. I don't see this backfiring So we'll just have to wait and see how it falls.
Well, let's just hope he hasn't shoot his shot too early, even though he's in the bottom half of the table at the minute. So in joint 6, we have Gary Morris with Gaz's Who's Party and Matt Smith with Actually Trying Is the New Not Trying, both on 35. 5th place, Alan Lucas, Very Nice, Very Evil on 40. Robert fucking Sean, the Draft Bastards, on 41 and 4th, just 1 point ahead. Then it's a bit of a jump. So our top 3 is all at least on 50 points. So 3rd place, it's myself with the West End Country Club on 50 on the dot. And then it's yourself, JP, and Trick in 2nd place. Can't believe we've got to read this out again.
Yep.
Paige Loves the Trick Willie and a Dirty Divas title on 53. And obviously, the GOAT being the GOAT with Team GOAT, 58 points overall. And those Darby Allin defenses are definitely what's carrying them at that stage. Unfortunately, still no update on the Listeners League at the minute, but hopefully we'll get that through in time for next week. But not to worry, the teams are being put together, the scores are being counted, and we'll give a full update on the current standings by next week, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm not as optimistic as you. Obviously, Stephen Wilson, the corruption, the cheating, the Listeners League. This is just an edict to them. You need to check your points. Make sure you hold him accountable. Get him held up for the blatant cheating that he's exhibited in the main league. Don't let it go down without a fight.
Yeah, no, quite right. I'll tell you what, JP, for the remainder of this show, because obviously Double or Nothing's happening next week, we'll do a bit more of an in-depth conversation on that. But I want to talk about your team in particular, given that, Andy and I did a sort of shadow analysis of each of the teams in whole. But I wanted to get your thought process as to how you ended up putting your particular team together. Now, obviously, you chose Trick Williams in round 1 overall.
Yeah.
Now, I was a little bit pessimistic about that choice because I think he was guaranteed to be at least round 2, but round 1 ahead of some of the other big name picks, that was, I think, quite bold, all things considered. And you've also got Paul Heyman, Kazuchika Okada, Fallon Henley of Fatal Attraction. You've got Brie Bella and Paige, the women's tag champions, and you've got Lash Legend. So Trick Williams, obviously your biggest scorer at the minute. He's currently joint 3rd with Io Sky on scoring of the season so far, 15 points total, but 29 with the captaincy applied. Paul Heyman on appearance points alone is 8, and the rest of them, I think you're getting somewhere, but it's still early doors in a lot of ways because the trend for the season so far is that everybody seems to have one juggernaut performer of the season, with the exception of Anthony, Stephen, and Andy in this instance. But it's clear, who the standout performers are at the minute. And in your case, Trick Williams seems to be your guy. So I wanted to just get your thoughts as to what hopes do you have for your team going up to, let's go as far as the transfer window for the moment, because I think there's definitely some weaknesses in your team, but I think you've also got a very strong headliner at the same time. So I wanted to get your thoughts on where do you think this could go?
Yeah, it was an educated gamble with taking Trick. Where I did, it was either Trick or Oba. That was my only decision, and it was hedging a bet that Trick Williams would either appear and or have televised defences, which garner more points because I would always put the captaincy on him over Oba. And Oba, as much as he's showing up in Raw, he's not putting the at least in the interim period, he's not putting the matches together. Albeit we have the Obafemi challenge now. I think I would have been happy with either. So I'm not sad that I've missed Oba. I'm not overly disappointed in that aspect that I've got Trick. The other picks. A little bit more. Again, the snake drafting is such a challenge. I was always going to be taking Heyman or Callis. I always like to take them for appearance points where possible. Okada, Now, I don't know what's going on with him. The rumours are that he's got some family issues as well back in Japan, hence why his latest televised appearance was actually nixed at the last minute. And uh, who went up against Darby?
That was Takeshita.
Yeah, so I believe it was meant to be Okada that was him, and then it got vetoed at the last moment because Okada had to go to Japan. So I'm looking into that. Maybe a little bit of trepidation in terms of when he's coming back. Obviously, he's got a belt on him, and
he
I know
is scheduled to face Takeshita at Double or Nothing as well.
Yeah, and I fully expect him to drop the belt at that point because I think Takeshita he's the future. He's again, he's been prominently placed on AEW viewing now for the past 12 months. So I would imagine that he's going to be doing that. But again, I think I've got value in that round. Brie and Paige are the ones that have kind of let me down a little bit. I kind of thought on seasons past, I've always been lumbered in taking a tag team last. And it's never worked out well for me taking them last. So I took a gamble by moving them up to, was it second round or third round I ended up taking them?
I think you took them third round.
Yeah, and I think I've taken a tag team one round too early in that aspect. It doesn't seem similar to Liv Morgan. It seems like they're a little bit rudderless at the moment. I know that they're scheduled for a match next week on Raw, but I don't see them having any long-term aspects. I could be wrong. Obviously, the booking can change at the drop of a hat. And Last Legend, again, I thought leading into Mania, she was hot. Her and Nia were getting a little bit of traction, but seems to have just dropped off again. I don't know if that's because there's been a change in the SmackDown writers' room. So overall, I'm happy where I am. Happy with the start I've got, but I know that come the transfer window, there is options to be made and choices to be looked into.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Fallon Henley, I'm quite interested in because she's actually scored more points than the current women's tag champions, who only really seem to have had appearances despite, scheduled for a title defense. But Fallon Henley and the Fatal Influence, that seems like it could go either way because they're generating a lot of heat at the minute from the crowd. Do you think there's a possibility that, Fallon Henley could potentially be a dark horse for your team?
Yeah, actually, and I completely missed Fallon. That was the reason why I picked Fallon was twofold. One, it was to break up the Fatal Influence tag team, so that there were 3 picks after me that didn't have a tag team. So it was a little bit of a play with that one. But at the same time, with JC Jane being called up, and after the reaction on the first SmackDown before the draft started, I was like, wow, they're being positioned really strongly. Now, obviously, they were very prominent down in NXT, and yeah, I took a bit of a gamble in terms of taking her because I thought to myself, well, if her and our tag team partner's name eludes me off the top of my head,
Lady Reed.
Yeah.
It used to be Jasmine Nix, actually, so I'd be quite surprised if somebody ended up choosing Jasmine Nix and they ended up only to realise it's Lady Reed that's in Fatal Influence now.
Yeah, so I again, the transfer window is a glorious thing. It could be that I end up like kind of rejigging my team completely and maybe getting Fallon and the tag team in at that point. I do think that she'll play a prominent position in SmackDown. They do draw a lot of heat in the early days, which is very good for me. And I see her, as you said, being a dark horse.
Yeah, but just remember though, when the transfer window comes around, it'll cost you 5 points to enact a trade. So don't take too many. Don't be spending too many points to get a team that might end up shortchanging you, as it were. So just be careful with who you trade out, and obviously, things will change in the weeks coming up. So I think
I appreciate I appreciate the concern, David. With the amount of cheating and corruption that goes on in this league, I'm sure there'll be some kind of finagling of the points in the background, should some silver cross Mr. Wilson's palm.
And just one last thing before we sort of run things off. Please tell me what goes through your head when you come up with these team names.
Filth and debauchery.
And I think we'll just leave it at that. Filth and debauchery. I think you couldn't have summed it up any better. But tell you what, that'll do it for us here on this week's episode of the Wrestling Draft. JP, thanks for joining me in the co-hosting chair this time around. We hope to have you back on very soon.
Thanks for having me, David. Cheers.
Yep. And if you want to get in touch with the Wrestling Draft, you can follow our back catalogue on Spotify, iTunes, any good Android podcasting site. Be sure to follow us on our socials, Facebook, X, Instagram, at The Wrestling Draft. Our selection show for season 29 is on YouTube, so you can check out the full chaotic selections that are made and all the laughs and the jokes, especially about Miles Bourne's deafness and Stephanie's robust behind. But we'll, yeah, so check it out there. And if you want to get involved with the Listeners League, reach out to us. We'd be delighted to have you on board. And maybe you could create your own draft team and maybe win the Listeners League so you can join us in the Premier League in a future season. So get involved, get involved in the discussion, and we will see you next time for another episode of the Wrestling Draft. Same draft time, same draft place.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Find the biggest voices in sports on the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Like the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. If the 25-26 season proved anything, it's that Scottish football is more than just about two clubs. Here on the Terrace, we cover the action, the drama, and the sheer bampottery of it all throughout the campaign. From the top of the Premiership to the bottom of League Two and further afield. And, of course, we also turn our eye to the constant rollercoaster ride that is the Scottish national team. That's the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. Get it wherever you get your podcasts.
Sports Social Podcast Network.